Alrighty, good morning to all of you. Glad to see you on the call. I am glad to see our usual Antiopas already on the call. Doc, Njovu, really good to see you this morning. No, we haven't spoken for a while except on our WhatsApp group, but we haven't actually interacted for a while. So good to see you on the call, Charles. Good to see you. I know others will join us. Those of you on Facebook, thanks for coming through. Hey, Doc, well, at least you can say hello as we wait for, well, as I'm about to comment. We normally don't wait for anybody. But good to see you, Doc. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. Rev, how are you doing? Well, I thought of just joining in today, and definitely I'll be here every Monday. Thank you. It's hello to everybody. And
thanks, Doc. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Rev. Good to see you. Thank you so very much, sir. I'm happy I'm here.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. Okay, great.
Okay, great stuff. So there you have it. So greetings to everybody else on the call. And without further ado, this is Monday. And Monday, normally, I'm the one that runs the sessions this Monday. Excuse me. In the next couple of weeks, we also have Wednesday. I'll be handling Wednesday as well because our other sister, Anne Bachaita, is over in Canada on duty, and so the 6-hour difference means that this is actually midnight right now in Canada, which is a ridiculous time to come on the call unless you're a night owl like my dear elder and Sylvia there. Yeah, she's a night owl, so she probably would be awake at 0 past midnight or 1 a.m. or something. But other than that, most of us wouldn't. So without further ado, let's jump into our lessons. We've been looking at the topic of leadership. And there's been some amazing revelations. I've gotten amazing feedback, both from within the circle as well as those outside. You know, we share on the other group. We have a group called Business and Mentorship Coaching. So we also share on that. And I also share on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this by YouTube, remember to like, comment, and best of all, subscribe by clicking, of course, the subscribe button, and then also clicking the notification bell. If you want to be notified of all posts, then you just do so. Or if you just want to be notified of some posts, key posts, then you do so. So you just click that notification button and you will stay connected. Those of you on Facebook already, you're part of what we do. And we're glad to come every morning here and share and be a blessing. And so this morning, I am now going into what I'm going to term the 9 general principles of leadership. Now, let's quickly jump into that. So we're looking at the 9 general principles of good leadership, or 9 general leadership principles. And so, like I said, having studied the 12 military leadership principles in past lessons, let's now embark on some general leadership principles to wind up this entire topic and seal the entire series. It's been very rich. And I know that because if you go into the Business and Mentorship Coaching group, you'll find all the lessons lined there and you could actually be able to follow through. Now, in case you hadn't been following this series, studied factors that are necessary to see Africa's total transformation. So the whole idea about this leadership is because we want to see Africa transformed. And we know that the one key that is also needed among these 7 is good leadership principles. And that's what I've been dissecting. Now, for those of you who are completely bamboozled or blank concerning what are those transformative principles to see Africa transform, what are those factors that will transform Africa? First off is taking responsibility. As Africans, we must take responsibility for where we are, because responsibility consists 2 words: response to ability. And we have the ability within ourselves. It's an inherent ability to harness this wealth around us. But until we take responsibility for that, we will never progress. So yes, if you look at my previous series, the 5 major reasons Africa is poor, for which I even have a book, the idea behind that book isn't to throw blame, but to identify clearly in a diagnostic manner the causative factors. Remember, in any sickness, you want to treat the disease by identifying what we call the causative factors. Don't deal with the symptoms, because symptoms are the outward appearance of a cause. So you could find that you're having headaches because you got high blood pressure and you're actually a cardiac patient and not even be aware. And when you get your headaches, you're busy drinking Brufen or aspirin, worsening the situation. So it's like treating a headache when you have malaria, with aspirin when you have malaria. So deal with the malaria. So in a similar manner, identifying those 5 major reasons Africa is poor was so that we could deal with them. So these 7 keys are the medicine. So number 1 is, of course, take responsibility. Number 2 is raise our standards. We have to raise our standards. I'll kind of go back to that later, don't worry, and tackle it as a topic. Number 3 is change our belief systems, and that's the contention. For me, if there's a pivot, if there's a foundation, if there's an altar, that is the reason Africa is where it is. It's this one, the beliefs. Because you see, beliefs are what birth mindset. So until you deal with beliefs, you cannot deal with mindset. Dealing with mindset without dealing with beliefs is like solving a headache for somebody with malaria. Treating malaria with aspirin. It doesn't work. You got to deal with the root. And for me, it's beliefs. Number 4 is change strategy. We've been here 59 years. Africa is still counted amongst the poorest continents in terms of wealth realization. So we realize that something's wrong with the strategy. It got to change. Number 5 is apply good governance. So we know governance is a big challenge in Africa. It's not rocket science. We know that if you change governance in this continent, you would solve most of the financial issues and wealth creation. Number 6 is with governance, and they kind of go together, is strengthen institutions. So we know institutions mean zilch if governance is messed up. So the governance has to change. But you see, governance is a function of mindset. Mindset is a function of belief. Do you see how that all goes back? That's why we got to deal with the beliefs. Once we sort out the beliefs, we have sorted out all these other things. And then, of course, number 7 is good leadership principles. Now, great leaders have one big factor that works as a positive, and that factor is they create an environment to foster and promote all these things. So a great leader creates a legacy. So let's look at some of the factors now real quick. So today we're going to go, I don't know how many I'll cover, but I'll cover as many as I can. But I think I said part 1, part 2, because usually it doesn't happen. You can't clear all 9 of them in one teaching. So let's begin with number 1. Number 1, be an attentive listener. So these are general leadership principles. I gave you 12 military leadership principles, very profound. And why we looked at those military leadership principles before was because the military are always in a clear and present danger at any time. Military are always ready for any eventuality. So they don't sit like nothing's going to happen. They're always watching and on standby. And so that means the kind of principles you need to run in that kind of setup are very critical, and we studied them. So now we're going to look at some general ones, which will kind of course, overlap, but not as distinctly as those leadership, the military ones I studied. So number 1, be an attentive listener. Now, good leaders understand that communication is a 2-way street, and it usually begins with listening. As the general consensus suggests, we are created with 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we listen twice as much as we speak, okay? And if a leader isn't a good listener, their team will be far less likely to listen to them in return. So great leaders understand that listening is essential for gaining the trust and respect of their team, okay? So being willing not to only listen, but truly hear what your team is saying is critical to understanding problems and how to solve them. So that's one area that a lot of leaders really need to zone in, okay? Teams will communicate problems, concerns, ideas, and personal information that will help leaders better understand how to inspire, motivate, and work with them. A good listener does not have to agree with everything they hear, but they must make an effort to listen. So this issue of listening is absolutely paramount. Like I said before, a lot of leaders aren't very good. Well, they're not leaders really, but a lot of people in charge aren't good listeners. And that's why when problems come, I mean, any attentive, discerning leader will pick up stuff. They will sense stuff, because in communication, I think we covered it. There's verbal, non-verbal communication. So you need to learn to read people. So a high sense of empathy, a high sense of sensitivity to what's going on is critical if you want to be a great leader. And that means being able to listen really well. And if you listen well, you will be amazed what you achieve as a leader. So that's number one, be an attentive listener. Number two, own up to your mistakes. Now, I need to clarify this. Even as I teach it, I'm going to clarify some things because there were a number of issues that were raised and asked. So let's begin. To err is human, but some leaders are concerned that their team will see them make a mistake. Okay. Now, it can be difficult to admit mistakes, but it is extremely valuable and actually necessary for teams to see their leaders make mistakes and admit them. Why? Because it instills in them the notion that they too can make mistakes and learn from them. So when a leader admits a mistake, it helps to humanize and demystify them, thus helping employees and followers relate to and respect them more. So good leaders rise to the occasion, demonstrating the importance of owning your mistake, assisting in their correction, learning from the mistake, and moving on. And this allows them to set a good example for the company, good example for the ministry, good example for the enterprise. But why? Because great leaders openly admit and stand corrected. Now, let me say this. A lot of people, well, a lot of us, myself included, usually don't want to appear weak. And there is this component that, isn't it good to appear vulnerable? There's a difference, ladies and gentlemen, between admitting or owning a mistake and appearing weak. Very dangerous. Appearing weak is when you break down and you have completely no solution whatsoever, and you communicate that to those following you. That's absolutely terrible. You never do that. That's why I think last time when I was teaching, I said, all praises go down, all complaints go up. All praises go down, all problems go up. Now, if you're the guy at the top and there's nobody else, you know what that means, right? It means God's the ultimate. So you're going to have to take that up to God. It's one of the reasons I, for example, as a Christian, I'm an adherent and an advocate and a supporter of the concept of apostolic oversight. One of the greatest challenges we face today is that a lot of new ministries and young pastors operate like independent wheels. They have no oversight in what they do from any leader. That's extremely dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. For a lot of people, that kind of operation has seen people lose their ministries. It's seen people lose their growth. It's seen people deviate from whatever God meant for them. Why? Because there's no elder, there's no leader, there's no person of seniority that can speak into their lives. There's no person that can correct them when they're off track. Because remember, we are human. And so because you and I are human, we are going to err on many levels. And when you have somebody that is a leader, headship, if you like, an oversight, they can come in and correct. So that's the importance of having someone you can go and complain to. In short, what I'm saying is, don't take your weakness, your mess, and then go show that to your people under you. When we talk about owning mistakes here, there is thank you. I like that what Doc is saying. I'll come up and read it just now. So there is a sense where you must understand that if you made a decision, and then that decision has costed the organization, costed the ministry, costed the endeavor some serious issues, it's great for good leaders to come back and say, hey guys, I know, 2 weeks ago, 1 month ago, whatever, this is what I said, but I have learned. My good junior there, Mr. So-and-so, Madam So-and-so, or one of my partners, or my director, so-and-so. I mean, one of the disciples, whoever it is, showed something, and at the time I didn't see it. But you know what? In hindsight, I see that this person was correct. So I'm hereby today saying I stand corrected. We're going to take on Mr. Banda's option, and that's what we're going to run with. I don't think for me that's weakness in any way. That shows that you're very sensitive, you are very cautious, and you are very alert to what's going on. And if you see that your idea isn't working, you can come back and change. I mean, one of the best examples I know in history in Africa has got to be Nyerere. Nyerere resigned from leadership at a time it was not fashionable for an African first president to ever do. And what happened with Nyerere is he had run with the Ujamaa policy. Ujamaa is basically socialism. Okay, and he believed that the Ubuntu, in fact, the whole Ujamaa would be Ubuntu. That's what we call it today. So that cooperative kind of thing. The cooperative idea was phenomenal, but in reality, it failed spectacularly in Tanzania. It didn't work. And so because it didn't work, he tried everything in his book, but I think by 1983, 84, he realized, you know what, this isn't going to work. Let me bring in someone else with fresh ideas, fresh mind, fresh everything. Let them take over. And that's how Nyerere resigned at an ahead of time, 1985, and in came Mwinyi to take over. And he cited, the reason I resigned is because I believe in Ujamaa and it has not worked, and Tanzania is worse off today. And so I would like to allow those who've run with us, who are part of our party, to also have an opportunity to bring in their ideas and take on different policies. I don't believe in those policies, so I can't lead that change. Change demands that I am not in the way to stall or thwart this progress, and instead something new should come. I mean, for me, I find that so brave. I have hardly ever heard in Africa, in that era, you must not forget, this is an era where our presidents were, there was a cult of personality. Our presidents were treated like small little gods. That's how we operated in those days. They were larger than life. Everybody worshipped them literally when they would show up somewhere. That level of respect and honor, and then a man of that stature to come out and say, my Ujamaa policies have not worked, I am resigning. For me, I will forever be impacted by leaders like Nyerere, because it shows that he's human, and it shows all of us can make a mistake and we can own it. We can own it and we can say, sorry, it didn't work. I am moving out of the way to give room to other people. Let me just quickly read these two comments. Dr. Jedediah says, we may have to differentiate between weakness and struggle, Rev. Just because you are struggling doesn't mean you are weak. Thank you for the talk. Great stuff. And then Dr. Goza says, very brave indeed. It was very brave of Nyerere, and Doc, great feedback. Now, let me quickly jump on the third point. This is a very good one. Communicate with others, okay? Open communication is a hallmark of good leadership. You see, now communication ties up so well with attentive listening, because listening is part of communication. People don't understand that listening is part of communication. It's not just blurting out what you need to say, but also listening and getting feedback in order to know what you ought to say. So open communication is the hallmark of good leadership, as good leaders understand. Employees have no idea what is expected of them unless there is open communication. And where it is lacking, they are believing that they are unimportant, that they are kept in the dark, and that their manager is dishonest with them. Misunderstandings can be avoided or resolved through good communication. It can also assist employees in better understanding and trusting decisions made. It gives employees the confidence to approach management with issues and concerns, and it encourages everyone to form positive relationships. Now, communication entails paying attention and speaking clearly. Listening skills are used by good leaders to help them know what to say, how to motivate, and what their team needs to hear. This is beneficial. Remember that mistrust is the final product of poor communication. In fact, let's put it this way. The number one cause of marital breakdown, that's another area where leadership comes in. The number one cause of marital breakdown is unmet expectations. Ask yourself, why are there expectations that are not met? Because when people were going into that relationship, there wasn't clear communication. Either somebody exaggerated their reality or they never communicated their reality. Either way, either you exaggerate it or you don't communicate it. Same thing at the end of the day. The bottom line is miscommunication. And when there's miscommunication, people come into relationship. Listen, everybody goes into a relationship with at the back of their mind what they believe are the benefits of that relationship. Let's be real here. There is no relationship on earth that doesn't have a give and take, benefits versus costs kind of scenario going on. And the sooner we can learn that, the happier we'll be. You see, if you go into a relationship and think that people owe you and you don't owe them, or they owe you and you don't owe, that kind of thinking will mess you up. So go into relationships with a clear understanding of what is on the table. Lay all your cards bare. That's what I call it. So if you don't have that, you will have problems. You have problems. And so many people need to understand that this clarity at the beginning is everything. If you tell people, come, let's start working together. Yeah, great. But what are our agreement? What's our agreement? What does this working together mean? What am I getting out of this? And what am I expected to give? That's why it's called terms of reference. Every relationship has, even if they are unwritten, they are there. Terms of reference. Back to marriage. Marriages break down because the terms of reference have been violated, written or unwritten as they may be. Everybody comes in and says, from this relationship, I'm expecting it's a partnership, so there's a 50-50. Now, what is 50-50? This one may see 50-50 as 50-50 down right across the board. Another will see 50-50 in a different way. So clarify, what does 50-50 mean? What does 50-50 mean? So this is where you see cultural bias and nuances come into relationships. People expect that in relationships, and they always model where they're coming from. So if you're dealing with Europeans, when they say we are married, it's a partnership in the truest sense. Everything is right down the middle. Even when you go on a date, it's a 50-50. Now that's a European culture. Come to Africa, different altogether. Very different. In fact, a lady from Africa will have depending which way she's coming from also, will have a totally different view of what this courtier is supposed to be doing, or now if he becomes a husband, what he's supposed to do. And then the husband will also have a very different picture in his head of what he expects the wife to do. Now, if these things are not communicated, that's a source of trouble, because this one is going to be they will not be happy because they feel this one is not meeting the bargain or is not facing their end of the bargain. And this one will also feel like they're being shortchanged by this one. So this becomes a place of contention. And that, my friends, is the reality of every relationship, whether it's an employer-employee, whether it's a church member and a pastor, whatever it is, all of it, same story. There it is. Let me read some of these comments. Very nice input. Let me just quickly go back. All right. So Dr. Ngoza says, without self-awareness, it's impossible to communicate properly about myself. True that. And then Martha Elimu, my sister in Uganda, says, the ability to look at self-critically in the context of larger interests and admit failure. That's very true on the other issue we talked about. Clarity, Thompson says, clarity. Yep. Be very clear about what you are and what you're getting into in any relationships. Outline expectations right from the get-go. That's one of the reasons why, and I'm learning how to be a bit more diplomatic. I've been accused by my sister, my mother, and my wife of being very insensitive, and I agree with them. So I'm working on it. But I'm one of those people that likes to just lay it out on the table as it is. I really don't like this sugarcoating stuff, because let's just deal with the reality as it faces us, and let's call a spade a spade. Now, of course, a great leader, a wise leader, learns what words to use, and so that's a skill we're all learning. But at the end of the day, when you lay out all expectations clearly, even when people come in, there's no misunderstanding. One of my favorite areas that I like to talk a lot about this, even with my wife, we've talked about it many times, is in ministry. I have seen, I'll talk about ministry as in pastoral ministry. I've seen situations where people, sorry, I'm just writing something. Calls. I've seen situations where people get into ministry and their picture and image of ministry is so different from the reality. They think that when you get into ministry, there are certain things that are going to just happen and things will be awesome and the pastor will always hold your hand, whatever it is they're thinking. I really don't know. Maybe they prayed and they heard all those scriptures and they believe whatever it is they believe, and they go out there and the reality is completely different. I mean, I always remember the one joke by, I think it was Richard Pryor back in his days. You know, he's a boxer training. He's joking about he did a stand-up skit, and he's talking about he's a boxer training, and he's with his trainer in there, and he's got a training bag, and the boxer is telling him, stick a move, come on, let's go for it. And he's really doing so well in the training. And then now comes the day of the fight, and he goes in the ring, and this guy is moving all over the place. And he says, Coach, he's moving. and the coach says, yeah, stick him, go for it. He says, but he's moving. And then so the idea, of course, is that when I was in the ring, the punching bag wasn't moving. Now this guy is all over the place. How do I fight this guy? So you see, that's a classic case of expectations versus reality. It's so easy to be training on your own there, but it's a whole other story when you deal with a real human being. That's why in boxing, they get you to spar, because when you spar, now you start getting a feel of what it's like to fight a real human being and what they do as they're moving all over the place. And that is the reality with all of us. When you get into business, people have got really warped ideas of what business is. And again, on communication, on this point I'm raising, classic example I'm always giving people all the time, and they think I'm being hard, but it's true. I always tell people, if you're going to go into business, learn the 1, 3, 5, 7 principle. I always say that. And what's the 1, 3, 5? 1 year to break even, 3 years to become sustainable, 5 years to become profitable, 7 years to become world class. And this 1 year to break even, this is no joke. That's where most quit. 9 out of 10 businesses quit here at the, here, just on the first year, because they never break even. Because then when they start their business, the idea is that you pump in some money, 3 months later, we make a profit. In fact, some of them even think like 2 weeks later, we'll make profit. My friend, real business, forget it. Forget it. You're not making profit in 2 weeks. If you make profits in 2 weeks, you're an exception to the rule. The majority will just start getting by, and they'll really only start seeing profits after, sorry, not profits, break even, like they can now manage to get back what they invested initially after 1 year. That's reality. Communicate that with new people. When you're a business person who's bringing in new partners, that's one of the key things to do. A lot of people don't say that part. They say, this is a powerful business, but brother, we will make money once we just supply one time. So you're really pitching all these roses. Oh, look at the flowers, but you don't tell them, oh, by the way, watch for the thorns, eh? When you're getting that rose stem, just watch. There's some thorns in there. See, nobody tells you. Great leadership requires you talk about the thorns as well. Now, that's not being negative minded, no, but that's creating prep in terms of how you speak, creating and managing expectations. Actually, that's what even courtship is. So not courtship. What's it called? Premarital counseling. Premarital counseling is about managing expectations. People come in with copper-tinted lenses. They have all sorts of crazy ideas what marriage would be like. I don't know. They watch too much of these, soap operas from India, so they think it will just be slow motion throughout. No, real life, there's no slow motion. Real life, there are no flying roses and cupids flying around the person. Nothing like that. Real life is babies screaming in your face. Real life is bills every morning. Real life is your wife complaining, husband not doing whatever it is you want. That's real life. And that's why premarital counseling helps to manage that. So essentially, communication is about managing expectations, because everyone comes with expectations. It doesn't matter who they are. They all have expectations. And so it's important to manage those expectations. Let me close now with 2 comments. Dr. Ngoza said earlier, even the BMI for Europeans is different for us well-endowed individuals. True. And then also, very funny. And then Dr. Jedediah says, what role does language play in communication? Very good point, Dr. Jedediah. In MBAs, those who do MBA, in communication, what's the key? There is a message, there is an encryption, there is a channel of delivery, there is decryption, and there is sharing of that information. When you decrypt it, then it is delivered. So there's the message here, there's the listeners here. And it's so important that the mode of delivery is chosen in view of the people you're communicating with. That's very important, Doc. So if the people you communicate with understand things in a different way, make sure that the method of delivery matches them. So for example, the way I'm addressing you right now is not how I would be addressing people I'm speaking to if they're from, for example, I go to preach at or I go to teach leadership at John Leng, at a church in John Leng. I'm going to have to change my language. I'll probably even need a translator to make sure that whatever I'm going to say is going to make sense. That is very important. Look at the language, look at the vessels receiving the message, and make sure you craft your message to suit those being spoken to. So how you speak to youth is very different from how you speak to young adults. How you speak to young adults is very different from how you speak to older adults. Older adults different from retired and senior citizens. Every one of these has a very different way of understanding things, and the older ones are more mature, so their level of comprehension is at a whole other level. And so even how you communicate to those is different from how you'd be communicating to teenagers and early 20s. Different, school, going into university, coming out of university, different people altogether. So how you communicate, very important. Manner of packaging your message, very important as a leader. Managing of those expectations in your communication, very important as a leader. So on that note, I want to thank all of you for being part of our call 801. It's time up. Tomorrow, Auntie Sylvia, who's soon to be doctor. Auntie Sylvia, you've got to become a doctor. Sorry, I just stopped calling you Dr. Auntie Sylvia. So anyway, tomorrow she's coming on and she's going to be taking us through the usual topic she does. Very important class. In fact, let me take this opportunity to appeal to all of you who are on this call. Please, if you have not yet taken Aunt Sylvia's Mindset Change program, I'm telling you, you're missing. Why? Because I'm so moved and impressed by how it is that program actually can lead to serious transformation. Hey, Doc, it's good to see you there, Mr. Chavala. Thank you so much for being part of the call. I'm very honored to have your presence there. So to all of you, have a great day, and we'll all catch each other tomorrow, same time.